Hi, it's Gerry, and welcome to day 102 of A Course in Miracles. The theme for today is, I share God's will for happiness for me. And that is wonderful. But the lesson goes in to talk about suffering. And it says, I do not want to suffer. I may think it buys something, yet now I question the sense of that. So it talks about how there really is no suffering. Now, I know that there is suffering. Like I specialize, or one of the things I specialize in is genocide studies. However, one of the greatest works to come out of the Holocaust was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I've referenced that book a number of times. And I read a book by a friend of Viktor Frankl, Rabbi Kushner, who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And they both address the same question, really, suffering. Why do we suffer? And now, I have a really hard time saying that there is no suffering because, like I said, that it isn't true. There is suffering in the world. However, Frankl says, suffering ceases to be suffering when we give meaning to it. And if we look at Frankl's own life as an example, he went through very difficult times in the concentration camp. Like, no food and cold and inadequate footwear and having to do really hard physical work outside and being threatened by, SS soldiers with rifles all the time and having insults hurled at him. But out of that came really one of the most powerful books ever written in Man's Search for Meaning, something that, it's one of the best-selling books of all time, and if you haven't read it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. And one of the conclusions he came to, as I said, is that suffering ceases to be suffering when we give meaning to it. Out of what he went through came this great work which really puts life into perspective and gives people tremendous hope and empowerment. So, maybe that that has to be what this lesson is about, that there is no suffering when it has meaning. And Rabbi Kushner comes basically to the same conclusion, that we find meaning in the challenges that we go through. And it ceases to be suffering when it has meaning. Now, if it doesn't have meaning, I've listened to other of Frankl's lectures and his book, Beyond Man's Search for Meaning, which is a collection of his essays that was put together just after he died, I believe, or it came out just after he died. But one of the things he said is that if the suffering doesn't have meaning, it's just masochism. Why would we do that? And I think that's more what this lesson is getting to. Why would we say it's good to go through punishment thinking that that's what God wants for us? That's not what God wants for us. That's just masochism, and we don't have a masochistic God. We have a loving God. So I think that's the conclusion I come to in this lesson that looks at suffering. So again, there is no suffering. I take that to mean that suffering has to have meaning. And when it has meaning, it's no longer suffering. It might be a challenge that we face, a difficulty that we face, but there's joy in facing those difficulties because they're making us better, they're making us stronger, They are bringing meaning to our lives and inspiration to the lives of others. And so that's how I see this lesson. Is that what the writers of this book are getting to in this A Course in Miracles? I would be surprised if it wasn't, because otherwise it would be a preposterous statement. And this book is anything but preposterous. So those are my conclusions for today. Thank you for joining me on A Course in Miracles, and I look forward to our lesson tomorrow and our further conversation tomorrow. May God bless you abundantly, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace be with you.